Emily Johnson, a 7 months pregnant taxi driver, faced another long night on the chaotic streets of New York City. It was past 10 at night, and she was about to end her shift, dreaming of some well-deserved rest. But before that, she decided to pick up one last passenger. Spotting an elderly man standing on the sidewalk with a lost and lonely expression, Emily pulled over. "Good evening, sir. Where can I take you?" she asked with a warm smile. The man, with white hair and a hunched posture, entered the taxi with some difficulty. "Good evening, dear. I need to go to Sunset Haven," he replied, his voice weak but gentle. "It's a retirement home, you know?" "Of course, I know where it is. Let's head there," Emily said, starting the car. As the taxi moved through the city's brightly lit streets, the initial silence was broken by the passenger himself. "You know, young lady, sometimes it feels like life goes by too quickly. I remember when I was your age. I had a family, a house full of laughter." Emily, always curious about her passenger's stories, looked in the rearview mirror and saw Mr. Miller's eyes shining with old memories. "And what happened to your family?" she asked, trying not to sound intrusive. He sighed, looking at the city lights flashing past the window. "Ah, they're all gone. My wife passed away a few years ago, and my children, well, they have their own lives and we barely speak." He paused, and Emily noticed the sadness in his voice. "That must be tough," she commented, feeling a pang in her heart. "Do you spend a lot of time at Sunset Haven?" "Yes," he replied with a wistful smile. "I don't have anyone left, so that place is the closest thing to a home I have now." Emily felt a wave of compassion for Charles. She thought about how difficult it must be to be alone, especially in old age. She was about to become a mother and knew how important family support was. "You know, you're a very brave person," she said sincerely. "It can't be easy dealing with so much." Charles smiled faintly. "Life is full of surprises, some good, some not so good. You learn to keep going." When they finally arrived at Sunset Haven, Charles looked at Emily with gratitude in his eyes. "How much do I owe you, dear?" he asked, reaching for his wallet with trembling hands. Emily shook her head, feeling a mix of affection and sadness for the old man. "Nothing, sir. This ride is on me," she replied with a warm smile. "Consider it a gift from a friend." Charles was surprised and touched. "Thank you so much, young lady. You have a good heart. May God bless you and your baby." Emily felt her eyes well up. "Thank you, sir. I wish you all the best, too." As Charles slowly made his way towards the entrance of the retirement home, Emily watched for a moment. She knew that small kindness had meant a lot to him. She started the car and drove away, feeling grateful for the opportunity to help someone, even in such a simple way. Emily and Charles formed an unexpected friendship. Despite her exhausting work shifts and the demands of her pregnancy, Emily couldn't ignore Charles's loneliness. She decided to start visiting him regularly at Sunset Haven. The nursing home, with its bright walls and well-kept gardens, became a special place for the two of them. Every visit began with a shared smile. When Emily entered the main hall where Charles usually sat, she always found him waiting, his eyes sparkling with anticipation. "Hello, Charles. How are you today?" she would ask, her eyes expressing genuine concern. "Hello, my dear," he would reply warmly. "I'm well now that you're here." Emily would pull up a chair beside him and start sharing about her day. They talked about everything, from the little quirks of New York traffic to their most intimate dreams. During these conversations, Emily shared with Charles her big dream of opening a bookstore one day. Her eyes sparkled as she talked about it, imagining shelves filled with books and the cozy aroma of paper and ink. "You really should pursue that dream, Emily," Charles encouraged her. "It's never too late to go after what you want. Look at me. I'm here, making the best of what I have left. And you, my friend, have a bright future ahead." Emily felt inspired by Charles's words. There was something about his wisdom and experience that made her believe even more in her dreams. "Thank you, Charles. Your words mean a lot to me." Beyond becoming a confidant, Charles also formed a special bond with the baby on the way. Whenever Emily talked about the child, he couldn't help but express his joy. "I'm looking forward to meeting the little miracle," he would say with a fond smile. "I think it will be a very special child, just like the mother." Touched by his affection, Emily found herself eagerly anticipating each visit. Charles had become more than just a passenger to her. He was a constant and encouraging presence in her life. With every visit, their friendship deepened, and their conversations about life, dreams, and regrets brought them closer together. The anticipation of meeting again became a part of their daily lives, creating a truly precious and unexpected bond. Sunset Haven was a tranquil place, with well-maintained gardens and buildings that exuded calmness. The environment, with its bright walls and well-lit spaces, offered a sense of serenity to the residents. However, beneath this peaceful facade, There was a constant hum of stories and secrets circulating among the inhabitants and staff. Charles Miller was a well-known and beloved figure at Sunset Haven. His gentle nature and the stories he shared drew the attention and affection of other residents. However, Emily began to notice something peculiar. During her visits, she observed that some staff members and residents seemed to have a special interest in Charles, though they didn't show it openly. One time, upon entering the common area, Emily saw one of the nurses, a tall man with graying hair, conversing with Charles in a more intimate manner than usual. The nurse seemed to listen intently to every word Charles said, with a look of curiosity mixed with something else, something Emily couldn't quite identify. When she entered the room, the nurse quickly stepped back, as if they had been discussing something confidential. On another day, while talking with Charles, Emily noticed a resident with white hair and a keen gaze watching them from afar. The woman seemed particularly interested in what Charles was saying, and when Emily glanced her way, she quickly looked away, as if embarrassed to be caught eavesdropping. These small observations began to create a sense of unease for Emily. She felt that there was something more behind the seemingly normal interactions between Charles and the others. Sometimes, she noticed whispers and furtive glances between the staff when Charles approached, making her wonder if there was something in Charles's past that was being kept secret. In her conversations with Charles, he never mentioned any issues or disputes, but the behavior of the others made her think there was something unsaid. Emily felt a mix of concern and curiosity, trying to understand if these discreet behaviors were connected to Charles's past or were simply reflections of the complexities of life at Sunset Haven. Despite its calm and organized exterior, the place seemed to conceal a tangle of stories and mysteries that Emily began to uncover as she spent more time there. One morning, the sun began to illuminate the main hall of Sunset Haven with a soft and welcoming light. Emily was chatting with Charles about the day, as usual, when he called her over with a discreet gesture. His eyes, normally calm and full of life, were now filled with a concern that Emily hadn't noticed before. "Emily, could I ask you a favor?" Charles asked, his voice slightly hesitant. "I'd like to speak with you in private, if you don't mind." Emily, a bit surprised by the request, nodded. "Of course, Charles. Let's go to the garden. It's a beautiful day outside." They headed to a quiet corner of the garden, where some flowers were beginning to bloom. Charles sat down on a bench, and Emily settled beside him. There was an air of seriousness about him that made Emily feel slightly uneasy. "I have something important to tell you," Charles began, looking at the flowers around them as if seeking some comfort in them. "I'm making some adjustments to my will." Emily frowned, trying to understand what this meant. "Adjustments to your will? Charles, are you okay? Why are you doing this now?" Charles took a deep breath before responding. "Well, it's complicated. I don't have anyone else besides you, Emily. And I want you to know that I'm planning some things for when I'm no longer here." Emily felt a chill in her stomach. "But why are you telling me this? I mean, I'm just a taxi driver, Charles. I don't know much about these things." Charles smiled gently, but his gaze was still laden with a deep sadness. "I know it seems strange, but you've been a great friend to me. More than anyone else here. And there's something I want you to know before it's too late." Emily felt a pang in her heart. "Charles, you're talking as if something bad is going to happen. What do you mean?" "Nothing imminent," Charles quickly reassured her. "But I want you to know that I'm arranging things in a way that doesn't leave anyone in a bind. And, in a way, you've been a part of my life in a way that no one else has here." Emily was confused but tried to understand. "Charles, I really don't know what to say. If there's something I can do or understand better, please let me know." Charles shook his head with a sigh. "I don't want to burden you with this. I just wanted you to know that you are important to me, and there's something else I'd like to share with you, but I'm not ready for that yet." Emily stood up, gently touching Charles's shoulder. "All right, Charles. If you need anything, I'm here to help." Charles looked at her with a mix of gratitude and sadness. "Thank you, Emily. I just needed you to know that." As Emily walked away, the feeling of unease stayed with her. She hadn't imagined that such a seemingly simple moment could have such a profound impact on her life. A week later, a sense of panic gripped Sunset Haven. Charles Miller, known and loved by everyone, had simply vanished. The morning had started normally, with the usual soft sounds of daily activities, but the news spread quickly, causing an uproar among residents and staff. Emily arrived at Sunset Haven for her usual visit, only to find a strange and agitated atmosphere. Staff members were rushing back and forth, talking in hushed voices and wearing worried expressions. "What's going on?" Emily asked a nurse who hurried by. "Haven't you heard?" the nurse replied, visibly concerned. "Charles has gone missing. No one has seen him since last night, and there's no sign of him anywhere." Emily felt a chill run through her. "Missing? What do you mean?" The nurse shook her head. "We don't know." The staff searched the whole place and the surrounding area, but they found nothing. It's all very strange. Emily's heart raced. I need to help. I'll look for him too. Trying to stay calm, Emily began searching the grounds of Sunset Haven. She went to the garden where she used to talk with Charles and looked for any clues. She walked through the hallways and common rooms, asking staff and residents if anyone had seen or heard anything. The residents, usually calm and reserved, were visibly disturbed. Some whispered among themselves, while others tried to understand the situation. What could have happened to him? An elderly resident asked Emily, looking worried. He always seemed so well. Emily tried to talk to some staff members, but their responses were vague and full of discomfort. We're doing everything we can to find Charles, said one of the security guards, looking anxious. But so far, we don't have any concrete leads. As the day progressed, rumors began to spread. Some residents talked about a possible forced disappearance, while others speculated about a mistake in security procedures. Emily overheard snippets of these conversations as she walked through the hallways, each rumor heightening the tension in the air. I heard he had some enemies, one resident whispered. It could be something from his past. Emily tried not to get carried away by the rumors, focusing on finding any real clue about Charles's disappearance. The feeling of powerlessness and confusion was palpable. She searched for signs, spoke to everyone she encountered, and examined every corner of the place. The sense that something was very wrong grew with each passing minute, and the frustration of not finding answers consumed her. 1 month after the mysterious disappearance of Charles Miller, the atmosphere at Sunset Haven was filled with anticipation and curiosity. With each passing day, Charles's disappearance seemed to become more of a mystery waiting to be solved. But on this particular day, something unexpected was about to happen. A lawyer arrived at the facility, carrying important documents and an air of seriousness that immediately caught everyone's attention. It was a sunny morning, and the residents were busy with their morning activities when the lawyer arrived. He was a middle-aged man, well-dressed in a dark suit, with a leather briefcase under his arm. His presence did not go unnoticed. The staff and residents of Sunset Haven quickly sensed that something significant was about to unfold. The lawyer was greeted by one of the senior staff members, who led him to the main hall. As soon as he entered the room, a collective murmur swept through the crowd. Look, it's the lawyer, someone whispered as residents gathered, filled with a mix of curiosity and expectation. The main hall, usually a quiet and cozy space, was now filled with hushed voices and anxious glances. The chairs were arranged in a semicircle, and everyone was waiting to hear what the lawyer had to say. Emily was among them, her heart racing with anticipation. The lawyer, with a serious and professional demeanor, began to speak. Good morning, everyone. My name is Edward Collins, and I am the attorney responsible for reading Charles Miller's will. The mention of Charles's name caused the murmuring in the room to increase, and people shifted in their seats, paying close attention. The lawyer continued, opening his briefcase and carefully pulling out some neatly organized papers. Charles left a detailed will, and today I am here to share with you his final decisions. As you know, Charles was a highly regarded person here at Sunset Haven, and it was his wish that this document be read in the presence of those close to him. The tension in the air was palpable. Residents and staff exchanged curious and anxious looks. Many had questions about what might be in the will and how it could affect their lives or Sunset Haven itself. Please everyone, make yourselves comfortable, Edward said, as the reading may take some time. I ask that you all remain silent while I read Charles's provisions. As the lawyer began reading the will, the atmosphere in the hall became respectfully quiet. Every word seemed to carry significant weight, and all attention was focused on Edward Collins, who seemed poised to reveal something that could change the lives of everyone at Sunset Haven. The main hall was filled with a nearly palpable silence as the lawyer, Edward Collins, began reading Charles Miller's will. The soft light streaming through the windows illuminated the room, creating a contrast with the tension in the air. Edward, with a serious and focused expression, adjusted his glasses and began to speak. Let's begin the reading of Charles Miller's will, he said, carefully opening the documents. According to Charles's last wishes, the majority of his fortune will be donated to a charitable institution. A murmur of surprise swept through the room like a collective whisper. Residents and staff exchanged looks, some with expressions of appreciation and others with curiosity. The charitable institution, which ran Sunset Haven, was a place many knew well and valued. Edward continued, his voice firm and clear. Charles wished for his donation to be used to support the institution and ensure that it continues to provide care and comfort to all its residents. Faces around the room showed a mix of approval and satisfaction. It was evident that Charles's generosity touched everyone there, and some residents even smiled with gratitude. But the biggest surprise was yet to come. The lawyer turned a page, pausing dramatically before continuing. Now, for the most personal and important part. Charles left a significant portion of his fortune and the house where he lived before moving to Sunset Haven to a very special person who helped him in his final days. Everyone fell silent, anticipation growing with each word Edward spoke. Emily, seated in the back, felt her heart race. She exchanged glances with some nearby residents, all curious and eager to know who the special person was. "This person," Edward continued, "is Emily Johnson." The entire room seemed to hold its breath. All eyes turned to Emily, who was clearly shocked. She couldn't believe what she had just heard. A sense of surprise completely enveloped her as she felt the weight of everyone's gaze. "Emily," Edward said, looking directly at her, "Charles expressed in his will a deep gratitude for the support and friendship you provided him. He wanted this amount and the house to be a recognition of the positive impact you had on his life." Emily struggled to find words, her mind still processing the magnitude of the revelation. The house, now tied to her memories of Charles, and the significant amount of money represented not just a gift but a profound acknowledgement of her friendship and dedication. The atmosphere was charged with a mix of emotion and astonishment as everyone awaited the next stage of this surprising revelation. The revelation of the will left the hall in a state of shock and agitation. The subsequent buzz was almost deafening. Staff and residents began to whisper among themselves, some with expressions of disbelief and others showing clear signs of envy. "I can't believe this," said a staff member, her voice low but laden with discontent. "Emily got a house and a fortune just for being a taxi driver. It doesn't make sense." Other residents shared similar feelings. "She must have done something to deserve this," murmured one of them. "It's not possible that Charles gave her so much without some hidden reason." Rumors quickly spread like wildfire. Some spoke loudly about the possibility that Emily had manipulated Charles to gain his inheritance. "I heard she was always around, helping him excessively," commented one resident in an accusing tone. "Could she have been only interested in the inheritance?" Emily, hearing the whispers and feeling the weight of the critical gazes on her, felt a mix of surprise and fear. She had never imagined that her friendship with Charles could be interpreted so negatively. The growing tension and unspoken accusations were making the situation even more uncomfortable. Feeling the need to clarify the situation and understand what was happening, Emily decided to seek out the lawyer. She found Edward Collins in a private office at Sunset Haven, where he was reviewing some documents. Emily knocked on the door before entering. "Good morning, Edward," Emily said, trying to keep her voice calm despite her evident concern. "I need to talk to you about the will." Edward looked at her with a sympathetic expression. "Of course, Emily. Come in, please. What can I do for you?" Emily sat down, trying to find the right words. "I'm really surprised by what was revealed today. But I've heard some rumors and gossip about how I might have manipulated Charles to receive this inheritance. I never intended for this to happen, and I'm very worried about what people are saying." Edward adjusted his glasses and looked at Emily with seriousness. "I understand your concern. Unfortunately, rumors and misunderstandings are common in situations like this. What I can assure you is that Charles made these decisions with complete clarity and gratitude. If there's anything else you'd like to discuss or clarify, I'm here to help." Emily took a deep breath, feeling a small sense of relief knowing the lawyer was willing to support her. "I just want to understand the situation better and ensure there are no misunderstandings. If there's any way to clear things up, please let me know." Edward nodded. "Certainly. We'll work together to resolve this and ensure that Charles's intentions are respected and understood by everyone." Emily thanked him and stood up, feeling a bit more at ease but still unsettled by the situation. The pressure from the rumors and the challenge of dealing with the negative perception were only just beginning, and she knew she would need to face these challenges with determination and transparency. As Emily settled into Edward Collins's office, trying to absorb the impact of the recent news, the lawyer began to reveal unexpected details about Charles Miller. Edward, with an expression that mixed seriousness and empathy, started to explain. "Emily, there's something more you need to know about Charles," Edward said, opening a drawer and pulling out some old documents. "Charles wasn't just an ordinary resident of Sunset Haven. In fact, he was a renowned writer." Emily furrowed her brow, surprised by the revelation. "A writer? I never imagined. Charles never mentioned anything about that." Edward nodded, adjusting his glasses. He was known for his best-selling books and his influence in the literary world. Charles accumulated a considerable fortune from his work. However, after a tragic accident that claimed his family's lives, he withdrew from society and lived a very reclusive life. Emily was shocked by this new information. "I had no idea. Why did he isolate himself like that?" Edward sighed and began to leaf through the documents. The loss of his family was a devastating blow to him. Charles withdrew from the world, seeking to find some sense and comfort in his solitude. It was during this period that he found a new purpose in his life by moving to Sunset Haven. Emily felt a weight in her chest hearing about Charles's pain. "And how does this relate to me?" Edward looked directly at her, with an understanding gaze. You became an important figure in Charles's life. Your presence, your friendship, and the way you treated him with kindness brought a bit of light and hope to him, something he hadn't felt in a long time. Charles saw in you a genuine connection, something he deeply valued. Emily felt a wave of emotions as she heard this. I only did what anyone would have done. I never imagined my friendship would mean so much to him. Edward continued, his voice soft. Charles wanted to repay your kindness and friendship in a way that made sense to him. He felt that by leaving the inheritance to you, he was acknowledging the positive impact you had on his last years. Emily was immersed in thought, trying to process what she had just heard. So, Charles's decision to leave me this inheritance was a way of showing his gratitude? Exactly, Edward confirmed. Charles wanted you to know how much your presence meant to him and how you brought back a bit of joy and purpose to his life. The revelation left Emily with a mixed feeling of gratitude and sadness. Charles's story, with its achievements and losses, now made sense, and she began to understand the depth of the gift he had left her. The emotion of knowing that her friendship had a significant impact on his life was overwhelming. With the new understanding of Charles and his legacy, Emily felt more determined to honor his memory and use the gift he had left her to continue doing good. The genuine connection they shared now seemed even more precious and meaningful. And as she faced the challenge of dealing with others' perceptions, Emily knew that the true reward was in the deep and sincere friendship she had built with Charles. As Emily tried to adjust to her new reality after the will's revelation, she began to notice that Sunset Haven was not the peaceful and welcoming place it first appeared to be. The atmosphere at the facility started to change as she delved deeper into the daily life there. During her regular visits, Emily noticed that something was wrong. There were hushed conversations and suspicious glances among some of the staff, and a growing number of small incidents raised concerns. The residents, who had previously seemed content, began to show signs of discomfort and mistrust. Emily noticed that some of them were more nervous and withdrawn than before. Have you noticed how Mrs. Thompson always looks so worried? Emily commented to a nurse, trying to sound casual. She used to be so cheerful. The nurse hesitated before responding. Sometimes, changes are hard for all of us. Maybe she's just adjusting. But Emily wasn't convinced. The situation seemed more complex. She began paying closer attention to the staff's behavior and their interactions with the residents. One day, she saw an attendant having a quiet discussion with an elderly resident, who appeared visibly distressed. The conversation involved financial issues and promises of improvements that were never fulfilled. Determined to uncover the truth, Emily started to discreetly observe the transactions and activities within Sunset Haven. One afternoon, while passing by the administration office, she noticed a folder poorly hidden on a desk. Carefully, Emily peeked inside and saw documents that seemed to be financial records. What she read alarmed her. There were notes about expenses and money transfers that didn't match what was being reported to the residents and their families. The next day, Emily found an unofficial receipt hidden among loose papers at the reception. It was a payment that did not correspond to any declared service, and the amount seemed significant. The evidence began to accumulate and pointed to a pattern of financial exploitation. Emily decided to investigate further. She spoke discreetly with some residents, trying to gather information without raising suspicion. She discovered that several of them were being asked to make donations and extra payments for special services that were never provided. The situation was even more complicated because the staff involved were people the residents trusted. With a heavy heart, Emily began to gather all the evidence she could find. The discoveries left her worried and frustrated, and the realization that the place where she had found new hope was being tainted by corruption and exploitation left her deeply shaken. Sunset Haven, which had once seemed like a safe haven, was now at the center of a web of irregularities that Emily was determined to expose. Determined to seek justice and not let the irregularities go unaddressed, Emily decided to take decisive action. She gathered all the evidence she had collected, including financial documents and resident testimonies, and submitted them to the relevant authorities. It was a challenging task, but Emily was resolute in her fight for what was right. The investigation by the authorities began soon after Emily's report. Teams of investigators combed through Sunset Haven, reviewed records, and interviewed staff and residents. The atmosphere at the facility changed drastically. The once peaceful environment was now filled with palpable tension and uncertainty. As the investigation progressed, it became clear that several employees were involved in fraudulent practices. They had created a scheme to embezzle money from the residents and manipulate financial information. The discovery caused a significant uproar, resulting in the dismissal and prosecution of several employees for their crimes. News of the legal actions and terminations spread quickly among the residents and their families, bringing a mix of relief and disbelief. Amid the turmoil of the investigation, Emily continued to review the documents and records seized during the operation. On a particularly exhausting afternoon, she came across an old, somewhat worn folder. Inside, She found a series of papers and records that appeared to have been carefully preserved. Upon examining the documents closely, Emily found something surprising. There was a series of files under the name Charles Miller, but, surprisingly, one of the documents bore a different name: Charles Anderson. The evidence revealed a direct connection to Charles's past that she had never imagined. What shocked her most were old newspaper clippings and contracts related to Charles Anderson's career as a writer. He was the same name of a famous author who had disappeared years ago, known for his acclaimed works and influence in the literary world. The discovery was a bombshell. Charles Anderson, once one of the most renowned writers of his time, was now revealed to be the Charles Miller Emily had known. Emily was stunned by the magnitude of the discovery. The man she had known as Charles Miller was not just a reclusive resident but a famous writer who had left a significant legacy. The connection between Charles's glorious past and his current life revealed a story of loss and redemption that Emily had never imagined. As she continued to explore the documents and understand the extent of what she had found, Emily encountered more details about Charles's life and the impact he had had on the literary world. The revelation provided a new perspective on the man she had known, who, in such an unexpected way, had changed her life. As Emily continued to explore Charles's documents, she came across a carefully folded letter hidden inside an old envelope. The paper was yellowed with age, and the handwriting was elegant and well-crafted. The letter seemed to have been written with a very personal purpose. With trembling hands, Emily opened the envelope and began to read. The letter started with an affectionate salutation: "Dear Emily." The following words were written with a tone of sincerity and sadness that deeply touched Emily. "I know this letter may come as a shock to you," Charles began, "but there is something I need to tell you that must come from me. Throughout my time at Sunset Haven, I was aware of many of the wrong things happening around us. However, I felt completely powerless to do anything about it, especially with my health and my limited situation." Emily swallowed hard, her heart racing as she continued to read. The letter went on, revealing an even more shocking truth. "There is something I have carried in my heart for many years, something I need to share with you. You are my granddaughter, Emily. The son I lost in the accident, whom I thought was dead, actually survived. He had a daughter, you, whom I never met." The words of the letter seemed to leap off the pages. Emily was stunned. The impact of the revelation was overwhelming. Charles continued to explain that over the years, he had found clues that led him to recognize Emily as his granddaughter. A birthmark he had described in old documents matched one that Emily had. "I always hoped that one day we could meet," Charles continued, "but fate was not generous. When I learned that you were my granddaughter, I felt a mix of joy and sadness. Joy for finally finding a family member and sadness for not having had the chance to be present in your life." The letter revealed the reason Charles had decided to leave his inheritance to Emily. "I want you to know that my decision to leave the inheritance to you was not just an act of gratitude, but an attempt to make up for lost time and the absence in your life. You have always been in my thoughts, and now, even though it is late, I hope that this can bring some comfort and help to redeem the distance that existed between us." Emily was completely absorbed in the reading. Her emotions were conflicted, and she struggled to process the new identity she had discovered. The unexpected connection with Charles and the revelation of her true lineage changed everything she had believed about her story and her past. The revelation of the letter brought a new understanding of Charles's life and Emily's own identity, causing her to reflect deeply on the impact of this new discovery on her life. With the inheritance left by Charles, Emily decided to pursue a dream she had cherished for a long time: opening a bookstore. She chose the name Books of Destiny for the new shop, a tribute to the incredible twists in her life and the turn of events that brought her to this special moment. Emily dedicated herself to every detail of the bookstore. She found a cozy and charming location on a bustling street, with large windows that allowed natural light to flood in. The interior was decorated with dark wooden shelves, comfortable armchairs, and a small cafe area, creating an inviting environment where customers could lose themselves in a good book and a cup of coffee. The opening of the bookstore was an emotional event, with a small ceremony attended by friends, family, and former residents of Sunset Haven who came to support Emily. She was radiant, feeling a mix of pride and gratitude as she cut the ribbon. The atmosphere was filled with excitement and warmth, reflecting this new phase of her life. But Emily didn't stop there. She also used part of Charles's fortune to make significant improvements at Sunset Haven. Knowing that many of the home's deficiencies could be addressed, she was determined to ensure that all the residents received the dignified care they deserved. Emily invested in renovating the facilities, improving meal quality, and increasing the number of staff to better meet the residents' needs. She made sure that every detail was considered, from renovating the rooms to creating leisure and activity spaces that made the environment more welcoming. Emily also set up an emergency fund to cover unexpected medical expenses and provide extra support for residents in need. During her visits to Sunset Haven, Emily was relieved to see the improved living conditions for the elderly residents. They were happier and more comfortable, and the changes in the environment reflected the care and dedication Emily had put into the project. With the fulfillment of her dreams and the transformation of Sunset Haven, Emily found a deep peace and a sense of acceptance. She knew she had honored the legacy of love and justice that Charles had left for her. The positive impact her actions had on her own life and the lives of others brought a sense of purpose and accomplishment that Emily had long sought. Every book in her bookstore, every smile from the residents at Sunset Haven, was a reminder that, despite the hardships, love and kindness can transform lives and create a lasting legacy.